Testing, testing. Greetings, 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 greetings. It is I, your King, King Clifford Jefferson. I said it is God for the fifth kind of Jew, son of folk, ruler of Jerusalem. I am the reincarnation of King Edgar the Peaceful, which we call here at the Third English Church of England, our Jesus Christ, the Messiah. It's a beautiful day to be here with you as always. Today is pretty much camel back off of the past couple of lessons that I have been doing in regards to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and the Tomb of the Holy Sepulchre, the Shroud of Turning, as well as the Crucifixion. And this lecture is going to be a totality of what those messages we're trying to bring to you, but yet you didn't have the mentality to comprehend. Hopefully you do today in regards to the time that's required and that was reserved for the manifestation or the realization of this lesson, which is today. Okay, so without further ado, it's April 25th, 2024, which we know in the Burberry is 2974. I give honor to my queen, Sister Galveston from the House of Galveston, as well as Archbishop Belmont from the House of Belmont, all the heirs, successors, as well as we give honor to our martyrs and our saints for all the illustrious job that they have done in the past, and Lord, what we call the monasteristic reform. Okay, the monasteristic reform, which was a continental reform of all the monasteries around the world as a result of the conversion and coercion of the religion called Christianity that was imposed upon us in what we call the 6th century. Okay, so we're going to pretty much discuss all that in its entirety, and pretty much create a synopsis so that we can understand in the fullness of what the scriptures were trying to tell us, but yet without the mind of those who wrote those scriptures, we really have no interpretation of how to interpret what it is that they wrote. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started with this beautiful lecture. I won't have a narrative today because today we're going to do a lot of going back over what we have read thus far, and pretty much, like I said, bring it to a cipher. Okay, we'll bring it whole. All right. So hopefully, my moderators will join me soon. And if there's any questions, as always, please ask. You know, because that's what I'm here to bring clarity what it is that you have in lieu of your concerns. All right. So let's get started. Pretty much the whole narrative of what it is I've been talking for the past week or so is pretty much concerning Jesus Christ, or the person identified as Jesus Christ, concerning his crucifixion, his entombment, his resurrection, as well as his bloodline. Okay, pretty much that's the synopsis. All right, we've been taught the abstract, but I'm giving you the concrete. Okay, today you're gonna have the concrete, so you know who is the Messiah, what the Messiah looked like, what the Messiah came to do. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of you are just like the three Marys, you know, coming to the tomb, knowing who you see. All right, you seek for the dead amongst the living. Okay, when the dead and the living cannot exist at the same time in the same body. You know what I'm saying? You know, one lives in the fourth dimension, one lives in the third dimension. All right. So you must understand that in its fullness, and today that you will have the fullness of the lesson. All right. So without further ado, let's get started. We talked about the crown of thorns yesterday. All right, in my last lesson. All right, which is paramount to understand this lesson because we know the crown of thorns represents the suffering which the person identified as Jesus Christ went through him as regards to being crucified. Okay, so we're just going to hit that real quick. You know what I'm saying? Just to get a narrative from what it is that we spoke about yesterday, and then we're going to move forward with the style of turning, which is the evidence or the proof of his resurrection. All right, so we're going to visit those two and get the concrete relative to the story or the evidence, i.e., in the artifact or relic that they got to qualify that story. Okay, this is what we look for in regards to the truth. All right, and as I always say, he who writes your books sets your timeline. Time never was, but man was not. The life of time when man began, the time will come when he will be no more. Okay, in order for you to exist, you must have a calendar. You must have a calendar. It's very, very, very important. That's why Jesus said one day to us is like 1,000 years to somebody else based upon your calendar. All right, because the calendar, the calendar starts to compute enough time for your existence. So we must understand that. According to the New Testament, a woven crown of thorns, translation, Stephanos, all right, was placed on the head of Jesus during the events leading up to his crucifixion. It was one of the instruments of passions employed by Jesus' captors, both that caused him pain and to mock his claim of authority. It is mentioned in the Gospels of Matthew 27, verse 29, chapter 27, verse 29, Mark chapter 15, verse 17, and John chapter 19, verse 2, and 19, verse 5. It is often alluded to by the early church fathers, such as Clement of Alexandria, Origen, and others, along with being referenced in the apocryphal Gospel of St. Peter. Okay? Since at least around the year 400 AD, a relic believed by many to be the crown of thorns has been venerated, and in 1238, the Latin Emperor Baldwin II of Constantinople yielded the relic to the French King Louis IX. It was kept in Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris until the 15th of April 2019, when it was rescued from a fire and moved to Louvre Museum. Okay, so this is your factual basis for the attestation to the instrument called the crown of thorns. Whether it was created by somebody else is left up for discernment. All right, but we're just showing that it was the last hands that it was in possession of as it uh, uh, transferred or was conveyed by Emperor Baldwin II of Constantinople. It was Louis IX. Okay, Louis IX. Everybody needs to understand that to follow the trail. Okay, from there, all right, as I said, let's go to Constantinople. Sometime after the crown was purposely moved to Constantinople, then the capital of the empire, historian Frankios de Melay supported that the whole crown was transferred from Jerusalem to Constantinople, not much before 1063. All right. In any case, Emperor Justinian is stated to have given a thorn to German Bishop of Paris, which was long preserved at Saint Germain de Prés, while the Empress Irene in 798 AD or 1802 AD sent Charlemagne several thorns, which were deposited by him at Aachen. 8 of these are said to have been there at the consecration of the Basilica of Aachen. Subsequent history of several of them can be traced without difficulty forward given to Saint Cornelius of Champagne in 877 by Charles de Bord, very key important person in regards to the French or Frankish kings. Charles de Bord, remember that name. He was the great Duke of the Franks and sent one to the Anglo-Saxon king Ashton, who was the grandson of King Alfred the Great. Okay? King Alfred the Great. On the occasion of certain marriage negotiation and eventually found its way to Malmesbury Abbey. Another was presented to the Spanish princes about 1160. Again, another was taken to Andechs Abbey in Germany in the year 1200 AD. Okay? Everybody see that? Okay, we're talking about the crown of thorns. Okay? Now we talk about the crown of thorns. Let's talk about the tomb that in which Jesus was laid in as a result of his crucifixion on the cross, supposedly. Okay? This will be called the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Before we go there, we're going to go to the tomb of Jesus. Excuse me, hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. The tomb of Jesus. See, I'm taking you step by step. The tomb of Jesus after his crucifixion, as established by the crown of thorns, all right, which was wind up in the hands of Louis XIX, passed to him from Baldwin II of Constantinople. And we know Constantinople goes back to the Constantine-Nicene Creed, all right? It says the tomb of Jesus is the place where Jesus was entombed after his death, supposedly. According to the gospel accounts, the tomb originally belonged to Joseph of Arimathea, a wealthy man who believed Jesus was the Messiah, offered his own sepulchre for the burial of Jesus. Possible locations for the tomb of Jesus include the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and the Garden Tomb. So no one's really sure, okay? No one's really sure if he's buried in there. If he's buried in there. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre is a church in the Christian quarters of Old City of Jerusalem. It contains, according to the tradition dating back to the 4th century AD, the two holiest sites in Christianity: the site where Jesus was crucified, concerning the crown of thorns, a place known as Calvary or Golgotha, and Jesus' empty tomb, which is called the Holy Sepulchre, where he is believed by Christians to have been buried and resurrected. This is concerning the Shroud of Turin. Okay, the Shroud of Turin, very important. So let's go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Let's go to around the time of the Crusades. All right, this is how you validate your story. At the time of the Crusades, it's the important history because these are the High Middle Ages. Crusade period from 1099 to 1244. All right, background. Many historians maintain that the main concern of Pope Urban II when calling for the First Crusade, we talk about the Knights of Templars, we talk about the Orders of the Holy Sepulchre, we talk about the Knights of the Hospitaliters, we talk about all these movements, and including the monastics movements. All right, yes, the ones who created monastic movements that were headed by secular clergy. All right, very important to understand on a continental level, a global level. Many historians maintain that the main concern of Pope Urban II was calling for the First Crusade was the threat to Constantinople from the Seljuk invasion of Asia Minor, in response to the appeal of the Byzantine Emperor Alexios I Komnenos. Historians agree that the fate of Jerusalem and thereby the Church of the Holy Sepulchre was also of concern, if not the immediate goal of the papal policy in 1095. The idea of taking Jerusalem gained more focus as the Crusades was underway. The rebuilt church site was taken from the Fatimids, who had recently taken it from the Abbasids by the Knights of the First Crusade on the 15th of July in 1099. Okay, these are the true records. The First Crusade was envisioned as an army pilgrimage, and no crusader can consider his journey complete unless he had prayed as a pilgrim at the Holy Sepulchre. The classified theory is that the Crusaders' leader Godfrey of Bouillon, who became the first Latin ruler, key point, Latin ruler of Jerusalem, decided not to use the title king during his lifetime and declared himself Advocatus Sancti Sepulchri, protector of the defender of the Holy Sepulchre. Why? As a result of Jesus wearing a crown of thorns. According to German priest, the pilgrim Ludolf von Sohim, the key of the chapel of the Holy Sepulchre were in the hands of the ancient Georgians. All right, let's go back to St. George, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but don't quote me. Don't quote me. And the food, alms, candles, and oil for the lamps were given for them for the pilgrim at the south door of the church. Okay, where you should be coming to the church. By the Crusader period, a cistern under the former basilica was rumored to have been where Helena had found the true cross and began to venerate as such. The cistern later became the chapel of the Invention of the Cross, but there is no evidence of the site identification before the 11th century, and modern archaeological investigations have now dated its cistern to the 11th century, repaired by the monomachos. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, please forgive me. Okay, let me go down a little further right here. The church has become the seat of the first Latin patriarchs and the site of the kingdom of Scriptorium. 8th and 11th century Crusader leaders, Bullion, all right, Baldwin I, Baldwin II, all of them are from the House of Flanders, all right. I know Godfrey is the son of Eustace II, who married Golda of England, the daughter of Æthelwold and Regis, the son of King Edgar the Peaceful, which is our Jesus Christ on the reincarnation of. All right. So you should be looking to the grave, looking to the sky. You should be looking for the reincarnation here on earth. All right. That's what the angel told the three Marys back there in the biblical day, which we discussed in a few. Okay. So 8th, 11th century Crusader leaders, Godfrey Bullion, Baldwin II, were all Latin kings of Jerusalem. Fulk was not a Latin king. Fulk was of the Council of Anjou, who descended down from the Angevin Ingalier. All right. Then you had Baldwin III, Almeric, his descendants. Then you got Baldwin IV and Baldwin V, the first 8 rulers of the kingdom of Jerusalem, ending with Cyrus, were buried in the south transept and inside the chapel of Adam. The royal tombs were looted during the Khwarezmian sack of Jerusalem in 1244, but probably remained most intact until 1808 when the fire damaged the church. The tomb may have been destroyed by the fire or during the renovation by the Greek Orthodox custodians of the church in 1809 to 1810. The remains of the king may still be in unmarked pits under the church pavement. All right. The church was lost to Saladin along with the rest of the city in 1187, although the treaty established after the Third Crusade allowed Christian pilgrims to visit the site. Emperor Frederick II in 1220 to 1250 AD regained the city in the church by treaty in the 13th century under a ban of excommunications, with the consequence that the holiest church of Christianity was laid under interdict. The church seems to have been largely in the hands of the Greek Orthodox Patriarch Athanasius II of Jerusalem, 1231 to 1247, during the last period of the Latin control over Jerusalem. Both cities and church were captured by the Khwarezmians in 1244. Okay, so there's some history on the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Okay, all right, so let's go to the Shroud of Turin. I like how I teach. I teach very good. From the religious view, all right? From the religious view, the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke state that Joseph originally wrapped the body of Jesus in a piece of linen cloth and placed it in a tomb. The Gospel of John said he used a strip of linen. We call this a shred of linen. A strip of linen is a shred of linen, and we call it in the English law escrow. Okay, escrow is a piece of papyrus, all right, or a strip of papyrus, all right, or linen, all right, which also means escrow also means shred, all right. Let's just show you. Escrow. Everybody look. Escrow. All right, we know escrow is the escrow agent, and the escrow agent is a stakeholder who has an interest in what we call shares, which is called stockholder or what we call stockholder or shareholder. The shareholder is the one who invests in the shareholder. All right, and the shareholder, pardon, so the stockholder, the shareholder is the one who invests in the stakeholder, and the stakeholder is called an escrow agent. All right, a stakeholder is called an escrow agent or a broker. Okay, yes. An escrow agent is called a broker, which is called a stakeholder who works for the shareholder or the stockholder who invests them. Okay, so we see the word escrow, plural noun, a bond, deed, or other document kept in the custodian of a third party and taking effect only when a specific condition has been fulfilled. A deposit of funds held in a trust or as a security. The state of being kept in custody or trust. Escrow, escrows, escrow, escrow. All right, let's move down. Origin. The late 16th century for the old French word escrow, scroll from medieval Latin scroda of dramatic originally related to shred. Everybody see that? Shred. So let's look at the word. Let's look at the word shroud. The shroud of turning. We know the shroud wind up in turning, okay, which is in French. But it was specifically called the shroud. Shroud definition. Shroud. Y'all better stop playing with me. A length of cloth or an enveloping garment in which a dead person is wrapped for burial. A protected casing or cover. A thing that envelops or obscures something. Means to hide. A set of rope forming part of a standing region of a sailing vessel and supporting the mast for the side. Each of the lines join the canopy of a parachute to the harness. Shrouding. Wrap of dress or body is a shroud for burial. To cover, envelope, as to conceal from veil. Origin, late English skirt, garment, clothing, or German origin from the base meaning cut, related to shred. An early sense of the verb Middle English was to cover so as to protect. Everybody see that? So the shroud was simply to protect the bloodline of Jesus in lieu of his inheritance, which involved land. All right? Heaven on earth. All right? Because the escrow agent is an individual that holds property which he does not know who's the owner of. All right? That's why land is conveyed fee simple instead of intel, because if it was intel, it would be considered crown land, because crown land is personified by the crown, which is the monarch. Okay? Which cannot be separated from it. All right. So we can lose that. All right, so now let's go to the shroud of turning, if you got that clear. Shroud of turning. As it said, when Jesus wasn't according to the story missing years of Jesus, Jesus was carried over to Glastonbury. Okay, he was carried over to Glastonbury of England and lived out his years. I think that's in there. Religious views concerning the Shroud of Turning. First, we're going to deal with the religious views, all right? Because we know the tomb that Jesus was supposed to be buried in was a tomb owned by Joseph of Arimathea, all right? It says the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke state that Joseph of Arimathea wrapped the body of Jesus in a piece of linen cloth and placed it in a new tomb. A new tomb. The Gospel of John says he used a strip of linen, a shred of linen, escrow. All right. After the direction of the Gospel of John states Simon Peter came along behind him and went straight into the tomb. He saw the strip of linen lying there, as well as the cloth that has been wrapped around Jesus' head. The cloth was still lying in its place, separate from the linen. The Gospel of Luke states Peter, however, got up and ran to the tomb. Bending over, he saw the strips of linen lying by themselves. Okay? In John Calvin's book, Treatise of the Relic, explaining the reason why the shroud could not be genuine. In all places where they pretend to have the grave cloth, they show a large piece of linen by which the whole body, including the head, was covered, and according to the figure exhibited, is that of an entire body. But the embellished John relates that Christ was buried as in the manner of the Jews to bury. What the manner was may be learned not only from the Jews by whom it is still observed, but also from their books, which explain what the ancient practice was. It was this: the body was wrapped up by itself as far as the shoulders, and then the head by itself was bound round with a napkin tied by the four corners into a knot. And this is expressed in the evangelist when he says that Peter saw the linen cloth in which the body had wrapped. You hear that? It says an envelope. You hear that where it says that? Expressed, Peter saw the linen cloth and when the body had been wrapped, lying in a place, and a napkin which had been wrapped about the headline. Where I just seen envelope. Because why I just seen that? Lying in the place, a napkin which has been wrapped about the head, lying in another. The term napkin may mean either a handkerchief employed to wipe his face, or it mean a shawl, but never means a large piece of linen in which the whole body may be wrapped. I have, however, used the term in a sense which is improperly given to it. One of the on the whole, either the evangelist John must have given a false account, or every one of them must be convicted of falsehood, thus making it manifest that they have too impudently imposed on the unlearned. Okay? And that's from a religious perspective. And let's go up here. From history of the Shroud of Turin. There is no definite historical records concerning the particular shroud currently at Turin Cathedral. That's why it's called the Shroud of Turin. All right. Prior to the 14th century, a burial cloth which some historians maintain was the shroud was owned by the Byzantine Emperor Baldwin II of Constantinople, but disappeared during the sack of Constantinople in 1204. Although there are numerous reports of Jesus' burial shroud or an image of his head or unknown origins being venerated in various locations before the 14th century, there is no historical evidence that there is reference to the shroud currently in Turin. Historical records seem to indicate that the shroud bearing the image of the crucified man appeared in the village of Livry in north central France around the year 1353 and 1357. It was owned by a French knight, Godfrey de Charny, who died at the Battle of Poitiers in 1356. In 1319, the Bishop of Troyes, Pierre de Arcis, who had jurisdiction over the church, wrote a lengthy memorandum to anti-pope Clement VII, recognized the pope by the church in France during the Western Schism, declaring that the shroud was a forgery and that a previous bishop of Troyes, Henry de Poitiers, had identified the artist who made it. Okay, so we hear about the crown of thorns, we hear about the holy sepulchre, and then we're hearing about the shroud of Turin. Okay, and we're seeing that all these goes back to what we call Jerusalem. Very, 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 very important to understand the abstract and the concrete. because whether we talk about them in whatever order, the main concern about the crucifixion and the Shroud of Turin is his resurrection, okay? His ascension, all right? And his return, okay? His return. That's the key part, focal point. All right, let's move forward. So in order to understand that, we must first take a look at Christianity in Anglo-Saxon England. Okay? Christianity in Anglo-Saxon England. We must understand that. All right? Let's look at the word English family coats and crests and coats of arms first. English. History, family crests, and coats of arms. The history of the name English begins in the days of the Anglo-Saxon tribes of Britain. It was the name for an Englishman, so nickname for a person from England. The name English comes from the Old English word Englisk, originally used to describe the Angles as distinct from the Saxons. One document referred to the raid in 1541 mentions the attacking party, where the number of the 52 Englishmen, the name was probably used to refer to non-Welsh in the border of counties in the region of non-Celtic Scotland. All right, the Scottish England borderlands and non-Dane and Daneland region. All right, so they refer to the name English as contrast to those of Saxons, and the word English is also spelled Englandmen. Let's get it. It's found in Scotland, England, and Ireland. Now let's look at the family crest coats of arms of English. Spelled Inglis. English spelled not spelled English, but Inglis. And it means belonging to. All right. It means it's a prefix meaning belonging to. And the name who English is a name whose history is entwined with the ancient Anglo-Saxon tribe of Britain. It was a name for an Englishman, so nicknamed for a person from England. So nickname for a person of England. The name English comes from Old English word English, originally used to describe the Angles as distinct from the Saxons. One document referring to the raid in 1541 mentioned the attacking party were to number of 52 Englishmen. The name was probably used to refer to non-Welsh in the border counties and the region non-such as Scots and the Scottish England borderlands and non-Danes and the Dane region. A notice says note that the name is borne by numerous Norman families: Adam, Alexander, Alvared, Asselin, Bernard, Henry, Elias, Gottfried, and 20 more bore 1180-95 the name Angelus in Normandy, the Magni, Rutilius, Scariel, Normandy. 24 of the Norman names of Angelicus are mentioned in 1198, and the family of the English or English are all Norman. England is another word. England is another form of Angelus. All right, another form of Angelus. All right, so let's move from there. Christianity and Anglo-Saxon. Gotta understand this. I didn't write any of this that we're reading. I'm just using this information as a source to get the truth. All right. Christianity in Anglo-Saxon England. In the 7th century, the pagan Anglo-Saxons were converted to Christianity, Old English Christendom, mainly by missionaries sent to Rome, sent from Rome. All right, we know Rome here in Britain was in Londinium. Okay, contrast to Londonwick, which was separated by the London Wall, which we discussed in previous lectures. Okay, Irish missionaries from Ionia, which is in Scotland, who were proponents of the Celtic Christianity, were influential in the conversion of Northumbria. But after the Synod of Whitby in 664, the Anglo-Saxon Church gave its allegiance to the Pope. All right, you see that? So that means that the Anglo-Saxons who worshiped themselves, considering pagans, were converted to Christianity to worship something that's abstract. Okay? They worship something that's abstract. We know the word Anglo in the Anglosphere is where the English or the Engle or Anglo people lived. Okay? Background. Christianity in Roman Britain dates to at least the 3rd century. It was introduced by tradesmen, immigrants, and legionnaires. In 314, 3 bishops from Britain attended the Council of Arles. They were Arborius from the city of Abercombe, York, Restitutus from the city of Londinium, i.e. London. All right, we know London is a city, not the landmass. It's a city. You had Londinium and you had Londonwick existing at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Which is separated from the wall, as I just stated. All right, so we see the Restitutus from the city of Londinium and Adelphius from the location of his see, which was uncertain. Okay? The presence of these 3 bishops indicated that by the early 4th century, the British church, not the English church, was already organized on a regional basis and had a distinct episcopal hierarchy. It is unclear how widely the Roman British people adopted Christianity. Archaeological evidence from Roman villas indicate that some aristocrats were Christian, but there is little evidence for the existence of urban churches. Okay? Roman rule ended in the 5th century, and Romano-British society collapsed. You hear that? Anglo-Saxon settlement of Britain began during the same period. This goes into the history dealing with Æthelwold of Ghent. All right? The Anglo-Saxons were a mix of invaders, migrants, and acculturated indigenous people. Before the withdrawal of the Romans, Germanic militia had been stationed in Britain as foederati. After the departure of the Roman army, the Britons recruited the Anglo-Saxons to defend Britain, but they rebelled against the British host in 442. The newcomers eventually conquered England, and their religion, Anglo-Saxon paganism, became dominant. The Britons of Wales and the Cornwalls, however, continued the practice of Christianity. All right. So then you get into the different people who are on this particular landmass at this particular time. And first you started with Æthelwold of Ghent, because we know that the Anglo-Saxons were converted to Christianity in the 6th century by Pope Gregory I, under the authority of Augustine of Canterbury, who was one of the leaders of the Roman Catholic Church, going back to Constantinople. All right, where you find the history dating back to the Shroud of Turin, as well as the Crown of Thorns, as well as the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, based upon the protectors of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which was the order of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, started by Godfrey II under the authority of what we call the Pope. Okay? These are straight facts. All right? So we're dealing with Christianity in Anglo-Saxon time, going back to the conversion of Anglo-Saxon under what we call the Gregorian mission, which we'll read right now. Kent. In 595, Pope Gregory I dispatched Augustine of Canterbury prior on Gregory's own monasteries of St. Andrew. And we know St. Andrew goes back to St. Andrew, the patron saint of Jesus, who was at war with Ashton. Okay? He was at war with Ashton, the great grandson of Alfred the Great. All right, who was from Londonwick Berkshire, all right, not Londinium, all right. Pope Gregory I dispatched Augustine prior of Gregory's own monastery of St. Andrew in Rome to head the mission to Kent. Augustine arrived on the Isles of Thanet in 597 and established his bases at the main town of Canterbury. Æthelwold converted to Christianity sometime before 641. Other conversions then followed. The following year, he established the monastery of St. Peter and St. Paul. After Augustine's death in 1604, the monastery was named after him and eventually became a missionary school. This is when you get into the Dooms book or the Law of Alfred the Great or the Judgment Law of Alfred the Great. It was conversion of Æthelwold of Kent and Lee Wessex and Offa of Mercia, as well as the Mosaic manuscripts. All right, the what we call the Mosaic the Mosaic what they call it, the Mosaic what they call it, the Mosaic Code. Okay. So we see in 597, the mission led by under authority of Pope Gregory I to commission Augustine of Canterbury of the Church of England, not the English Church, but the Church of England, to convert all the English Anglo-Saxons from the English Church of England into Christianity. All right. So we're gonna move down. This is when it started going to the north. You can read this in your own time. For the sake of time, I have to speak to this for the sake of the time that the lesson entails. All right. You can read all about Æthelwold of Kent. Insular missions, monastic foundation. All right. The monastic foundation started as a result of Christianity being brought upon the Anglo-Saxons of Kent and what we call Northumbria. All right. Key, Northumbria. All right. Because these were Vikings as well. There was a time where there was a point in time where there was a resolving of blood feuds between Kent and the invaders, all right, as a result of what we call marriages, all right. So we don't have time to talk about that. You can do that at your own will. It says here, a similar situation arose in the north, because this is concerning the north. Æthelwold was the daughter of King Edgar of Northumbria. Her maternal grandfather was King Ethelbert of Kent. She was married to Æthelwold, King of Bernicia, in 651, after 7 years of peaceful rule. Æthelwold declared war on Oswine, King of neighboring Deria. Oswine, who belonged to the rival Duran royal family, was Æthelwold's maternal second cousin. Oswine refused to engage in battle, instead retreating to Gelling in the home of his friend Æthelwold. Humwald betrayed Oswine, delivering him to Æthelwold's soldiers, by whom Oswine was put to death. In Anglo-Saxon culture, it was assumed that the nearest kinsman to a murdered person would seek to avenge the death or require some other kind of justice on account of it, such as the payment of word guilt. Okay? Those who want to get more on that information, you continue to read on. We're going to move on down through time. Synod Whitby, 664. Anglo-Saxon saints, all right? These are those who came down with the Kingdom of Kent, okay? These are all those saints, all right? Anglo-Saxon missions, Anglo-Saxon mission on the continent, all right? We're still talking about the base of Christianity on the Anglo-Saxon tribe of Kent. Then you get to the Benedictine Reform, okay? As a result of Christianity that goes back to the 6th century, started with Pope Gregory I and Augustine of Canterbury, all right? With the conversion of Christianity, all right? This is very important for y'all to understand that, all right? Very important, which will be discussed also in the English Benedictine Reform. The Benedictine Reform was led by St. Justin over the later half of the 10th century as a result of what happened from the 6th century to this point in time. It sought to revive the church piety by replacing secular canons, often under the direct influence of local landowners and often their relatives, with celibate monks answering to the ecclesiastical hierarchy and ultimately to the Pope. This deeply split the newly formed Kingdom of England, bringing it to the point of civil war. You hear that? This came to a civil war as a result of King Alfred's descendant, all right, which was a result of that war between Londinium and Londonward, all right? This deeply split the newly formed Kingdom of England, bringing it to a point in civil war with the East Anglian nobility such as Asherton, Half-King Byrhtnoth, supporting Dunstan, and the Wessex aristocracy, Odegaard, Ealdamere, and Stouts, supporting the secularists. These factions mobilized around King Edwin, anti-Dunstan, and his brother King Edgar, pro. On the death of Edgar, his son Edward the Martyr was assassinated by the anti-Dunstan fascists and their candidates. The young King Æthelwold was placed on the throne. However, this most terrible deed since the English came from over the sea provoked such a revulsion that the secularists climbed down, although Dunstan was effectively retired. Okay, so we're talking about the Benedictine Reform. All right, at the time of King Alfred the Great and his descendants, which were called the Kings of Wessex, contrast to the Kings of Kent, which were all Anglo-Saxons as well. All right, so that brings us to the Benedictine monastic reform, which was the monastic reform, which was continental. Okay, was continental as a result of the Gregorian mission. All right, all involving the Grail, the bloodline. So they called for a Benedictine reform. Everybody hold that thought. Okay, Benedictine reform as a result of the Christianity coming to the Isles of Great Britain as a result of the Roman Catholic Celtics who were actually affiliated with the Romans, who set up shop in what they call Ionian. All right, we read that for ourselves. Anybody got a problem with that? You go to the person who wrote this. So the Benedictine reform was headed by Saint Dunstan. All right, over the later half of the 10th century, it sought to revive church piety by replacing secular canons, often under the direct influence of local landowners and often their relatives, with celibate monks answerable to ecclesiastical hierarchy of the hierarchy and ultimately to the Pope. This deeply split the newly formed Kingdom of England, bringing it to a point of civil war with the East Anglian nobility, such as Asherton half-brother, half-king Berthnoth, supporting Dunstan, and the Western aristocracy, Odgard, Element, and Stout, supporting the secularists. All right. These fascists mobilized around King Edgar, anti-Dunstan, and his brother King Edgar, pro. On the death of Edgar, his son Edward the Martyr was assassinated by the anti-Dunstan factions and their candidates, and the young King Æthelwold was left to rule. And Æthelwold means unready, all right, ill-advised. All right, let's leave this and go to the Benedictine Reform. A straight paper trail. The English Benedictine Reform or monastic reform, because the monastic reform was the reform of the abbeys, all right, which took place on the cosmopolitan level, all right. It was universal, all right. It was international. It was global, all right. The English Benedictine Reform or monastic reform of the English Church in the late 10th century was a religious and intellectual movement in the later Anglo-Saxon period. In the mid-10th century, almost all monasteries were staffed by secular clergy. All right, you hear that? All monasteries in the mid-10th century were all staffed by secular clergy who were often married. The reformers under the English Benedictine Reform or monastic reform sought to replace them with celibate contemplative monks following the rule of Saint Benedict. This movement was inspired by Continental monastic reform. So it wasn't just one monastic reform, it was the Continental monastic reform. And the leading figures were St. Dunstan, Archbishop of Canterbury, Æthelwold, Bishop of Winchester, and Oswald of Archbishop of York. Okay? In the 7th and 8th century, England, most monasteries were Benedictine. You hear that? But in the 9th century, learning and monasticism declined severely. Alfred the Great in 871 to 899 deplored the decline and started the reverse of it. So he sought to fix the decline and the teachings in the monastic reform under the teachings of the St. Benedict order that was done going all the way back to St. Benedict of Nursia, all right? The court of Asherton, the first king of the whole of England, was a cosmopolitan and future reformer, such as Dunstan and Æthelwold learned from the Continental exponents of the Benedictine monasticism, all right? The English movement became dominant under King Edgar in 959 to 975. That means that from 959 to 975, the English monastic reform or the monastic reform, which was global, came to its highest point under King Edgar the Peaceful, who supported the explosion of the secular clergy from the monasteries and cathedral chapters and their replacements by monks. The reformers had close relations with the crown, furthering its interest and depending on it for support. Okay? Everybody see that? So it said it was a continental monastic reform. Let's see what it means when they say continental reform. The Continental Reform or the Benedictine Reform or the Monastic Reform or Monastery Reform stated that the Clunic Reform, also called the Benedictine Reform, was a series of changes with the medieval monastics in the Western Church focusing on restoring the traditional monastic life, encouraging art, and caring for the poor. The movement began with the Benedictine order at Cluny Abbey, founded in 910 by William, Duke of Aquitaine. All right. The reforms were largely carried out by Saint Odo and spread throughout France, which included Burgundy, Provence, Auvergne, and Poitiers, into England, the English Benedictine Reform, and through much of Italy, northern Portugal, and Spain. Everybody see that? So we're talking about a Continental Reform, which included the English Benedictine Reform, included reform that took place in England, France, Portugal, Spain, and Italy. Okay? We must understand that. You must understand this, because it'll never be explained any clearer than this. So the English Benedictine and the Clunic Benedictine Reform or monastic reform came to its height at 959 by King Edgar Peaceful, who is our Jesus Christ, who I am the reincarnation of, okay? I am the reincarnation of King Edgar the Peaceful. Why? Because of the crown. The crown denotes to crown land, which is intel, which is personified by the crown, i.e. the king, i.e. the monarch, okay? Very important for you to understand that. Because if you keep looking for Jesus in that tomb, you're going to be forever looking, all right? They've been looking for 2,000 years. Let's go to the year 959. At the height of the monastic reform. At the height where King Edgar the Peaceful is ruling on a continental, global, international, universal level, all right? And he's not ruling as an English king. He's ruling as a Berber king. Because English reading our year on this calendar, on this Gregorian calendar. You don't see one. You see Berber calendar, you see the Coptic calendar, you see the Hebrew calendar. See the Julian calendar, the solar calendar. You got all these calendars, right? No one ever thought to actually scroll down to the events that's taking place in the year of 959 in everybody's culture according to their own calendar. Let's take the time to do that now. So under the Byzantine Empire, which goes back to Constantinople, Byzantine refuses to pay yearly tribute. Hungarian army leads, led by Apor, invades Macedonia and Thrace. He plunges in the territories until reaching Constantinople. On his way back, Apor is defeated during a night attack by the Byzantine forces. November 9th, Constantinople. On November 9th, Emperor Constantine the 7th is meaning Porphyrogenitus, born in purple, dies at Constantinople after a 46-year reign. He is succeeded by his 21-year-old son, Romanius II, as the ruler of the Byzantine Empire. Okay? Winter. Romanos II appoints Leo Phocas, the younger, to commander of the Byzantine field army, domestic of the schools in the west. Phocas' clan becomes one of the leading families in Constantinople. All right? So that's it in Constantinople. Let's go to Europe. Bruno I, Archbishop of Dort of Lothringen, resigns. His brother King Otto I divides the duchess into two parts, Upper Lorraine and Lower Lorraine. He appoints Frederick I and Godfrey I as margraves. Pietro, now, is this Godfrey Andrew? No. Just want to make sure. So this is in Europe. All right. Frederick I appoints Godfrey as a margrave, vice-duke. Pietro III Candiano Dodge of Venice dies after 17-year reign. He's succeeded by his son Pietro the Fourth Candiano, who breaks off his campaign in Spoleto on behalf of King Berengar II of Italy and returns to Venice. Pietro the Fourth Candiano divorces his wife Joanna for political reasons and banishes her as a nun to the monastery of San Zaccaria. All right, that's in Europe. Let's go to England. At 959, October 1st, King Edwin died after a 4-year reign. He is succeeded by his 16-year-old brother, Edgar the Peaceful. This is our Jesus Christ, who effectively completes the unification of England when Northumbria submits to his rule. All right, so that means that Northumbria, under the kings of Wessex, which King Edgar was a king of Wessex, took control of Northumbria as a result of Northumbria being invaded in the 6th century by those invaded Roman Catholics, Celtic descendants from the Roman Empire, all right, in the 5th, 6th century, all right. They invaded England, all right. Then they came back under the rule of King Edgar the Peaceful in 959, okay. In 959, October 1st, all right. Religion. What's going on with the religion? Dunstan, Bishop of Worcester in London, is appointed by Edgar I as Archbishop of Canterbury and becomes his chief advisor. They're talking about the English Benedictine Reform. Okay? They're talking about the reformation of the church. All right? And once again, there are no English kings here. They're Berber. It's the Berber calendar. So the Gregorian calendar is 959, but actually the year at the time of King Edgar the Peaceful ruling is actually in the Berber year 1909. All right? Because they were using the Berber calendar. All right? The Gregorian calendar didn't come on until 1582 by Pope Gregory XIII. All right? Yeah, these are straight facts. 959. Why is this important? And 959 takes us to Westminster Abbey. It'll never get any better, y'all. Westminster Abbey. Westminster Abbey, formerly titled the Collegiate Church of St. Peter at Westminster, is an Anglican church in the city of Westminster, London, England, since 1066. It has been the location of the coronation of 40 English and British monarchs and a burial site for 18 English, Scottish, and British monarchs. At least 16 royal weddings have taken place at the Abbey since 1100 AD. So Westminster Abbey, known as the Collegiate Church of St. Peter at Westminster, has been since 1066 a place where the coronation of English kings and British monarchs were consecrated. Okay, very important. The coronation took place. All right, where was the founding of Westminster Abbey? (959). 959 is when Westminster Abbey was founded. King Edgar the Peaceful became crowned King of England in 959. Okay? Very important for you to understand that, because this is also when the English Benedictine Reform monastery abbeys came to their height in 959. Okay? 959. And there weren't even English kings in 959. There were Berber kings, no English king. But it just said here in 1066, English kings began to be coronated there in Westminster Abbey. It said in 1066. They didn't say 959. It says since 1066, it's been a location or coronation of English king, because the first English renowned year was in 1066 for William the Conqueror. But the Abbey of Westminster was founded in 959 at the height of King Edgar the Peaceful, who became crowned king in what year? 959. All right? Let's look at a little history. Jesus said, "Upon this rock I'll build my church." Historians agree that there were a monastery dedicated to St. Peter on the site prior to the 11th century, though the exact origin is somewhat obscure. On legends claim that it was founded by the Saxon king Sebert of Essex, and another claim that it was fixed in the 12th century, in the 2nd century, British King Lucius. On one tradition claimed that a young fisherman on the river Damius had a vision of St. Peter near the site. This seems to have been quoted as the origin of the salmon that vain fishermen offered to the abbey, a custom still observed annually by the Fishmongers' Company. What was that? Let me go back up here. It says, although the origin of the church are obscure, an abbey housing Benedictine monks was on the site by the mid-10th century. The church got its first large building from the 1040s, commissioned by King Edward the Confessor, who is buried inside. Construction of the present church began in 1245 on the order of Henry III, son of John, son of Henry II, son of Godfrey V, Count of Anjou. The monastery was dissolved in 1559, and the church was made a royal peculiar, a Church of England church accountable directly to the sovereign by Elizabeth I. The Abbey of the Palace of Westminster and St. Margaret's Church became a World Heritage Site in 1987 because of their historic and symbolic significance. History. Let's go back down here when I started. The origin of the Abbey are generally thought to date back to about 959. It said it was founded in 959, right? When St. Dunstan and King Edgar installed a community of Benedictine monks on the site. At that time, the location was an island in the middle of the river. You hear that? In the middle of the river, Thames, called However you pronounce that. This building was not survived, but archaeological have found some pottery and foundations from this period on the Abbey site. So Westminster Abbey was founded in 959 at the time of King Edgar the Peaceful being crowned king. Okay. Between 1042 and 1052, Edward the Confessor began rebuilding St. Peter Abbey to provide himself with a royal burial church. It was built in Romanesque style and was the first church in England built on a cruciform floor plan. The master stonemason for the project was Leo C. Dadison, with Godwinson and Windlesburg Grissy, meaning fat purse, as patron, and Tinsfritz as church right, probably meaning someone who worked on the carpentry and roofing. Endowments from Edward supported a community that increased from a dozen monks during Dustin's time to as many 80. The building was completed around 1060 and was consecrated on the 28th December 1065, about a week before Edward's death on the 5th of January 1066. A week later, he was buried in the church. 9 years later, his wife Edith was buried alongside him. The successor, Harold Godwinson, was probably crowned here, although the first documented coronation is that of William the Conqueror later that year. Okay? So when Edward the Confessor died, William the Conqueror took over. Why? As a result of what we call Northumbria's revolt. All right? Northumbria's revolt. Northumbria's revolt took place in 1065. Did you hear what I said? Northumbria's revolt took place in 1065, which led way for the Norman conquest in 1066 by William the Conqueror. All right? Because we know that in 959, Northumbria came up under the rule of who? King Edgar the Peaceful. It can never be explained more simpler than this. Don't hate on the king. We're using the calendar to support it. All right. England. King Edward died at 4 years' reign, and he was succeeded by his 16-year-old brother Edgar the Peaceful, who effectively completes the unification of England when Northumbria submits to his rule. Okay, so that means Northumbria submits to his rule as a result of a non-compliance to the rules that were instituted by King Edgar the Peaceful under the monastic reform, such as the English Benedictine Reform, based upon the precepts of Saint Benedict of Nursia. Okay. So let's see the Northumbria revolt. Let's go to 1065. (1065). We know in 959 there is no English reading out here, right? It's only the Berber county that exists. And these are Anglo-Saxon Berbers, as we always say. All right? These are Anglo-Saxon Berbers. We know that when you're dealing with Christianity in Anglo-Saxon Britain, it was a result of the Gregorian mission, all right, which was defended by the English Benedictine Reform that was established by Alfred the Great, Edward the Elder, Asterton, and came to its height by King Edgar the Peaceful. And there was a monastery built in name of that, which was called Westminster Abbey, built in 959 when King Edgar became peaceful and became crowned. And there was no English king reigning there, but there was an English king crowned there, which was William the Conqueror. So every king prior to William the Conqueror was a Berber king. All right? A Berber king. The year 1065. We know 1065 is the Berber year because the Gregorian calendar is not created in 1582. Okay? We know the Julian calendar is not in existence because these people ain't around no more. All right? And everybody else got their own calendar. The Syrians got their calendar doing their own thing. Balinese, Saka doing their own thing. The Bengals doing their own thing. All right. The Buddhists doing their own thing. The Burmese doing their own thing. The Byzantine Empire is doing their own thing. We know Byzantine Empire goes back to Constantinople. All right. Which disqualifies whatever Roman is doing. All right. Because we know it fell in the 5th century as a result of the English Benedictine Reform. Okay. We also see the Buddhists doing their own thing, the Burmese, the Byzantine, the Chinese doing their own thing. All right. The Copts doing their own thing, the Tuscardians calendar doing their own thing, the Ethiopians, Hebrews, the Hindus, Big Ram, the Shakas, the Khalid, the Hustling, the Igbo tribe. Had somebody work with me at Robert Johnson from the Igbo tribe. They got their own calendar. The Iranians, the Islamic calendars, the Japanese, the Crusades had their own calendar. The Crusades, which involved the Islamic tribes, which were called Muslims, they had their own calendar. The Japanese got their own calendar. All right, Japanese, the Julians, the Koreans, the Mingwa, the Nana Kashahi, the Seleucids, even the solar calendar and the Tibetan's calendar. Everybody got their own coinciding calendar. Okay, so we're using the Berber calendar. All right, we know the year is 2015, but they want to make us think it's 1065, so we're going with that year. All right, so in the year 1065, which we see ain't no English week now year there, right? Because it says here it's not applicable. Didn't it say that, y'all? Not applicable. Let's see. What's going on in Europe? Reason why they don't name other countries and other events in other countries because I guess they felt them not being significant. But they do place Europe in here, and in Europe they're being ruled by King Ferdinand the Great of the Empire of Castile, the Spanish Empire. Died in Leon after 11-year reign as the Emperor of all Spain. Remember, we had the Kingdom of Spain, which was ruling colonies over here in what we call New Spain, which was surrendered to Great Britain in 1763 under the Treaty of Paris of 1763, which was New Spain and New France, all being ruled by England now as a result of that treaty. Okay, but in Europe, December 24th, King Ferdinand dies in Leon after 11-year reign as the Emperor of all Spain. His kingdom is divided among his 3 sons, the eldest Sancho II, Alfonso VI, and the youngest Garcia the second. The kingdom of Galicia and Portugal become independent under the rule of Garcia. What's going on in England? October 3rd, Northumbria rebels against a Viking, Tosin, who is exiled. He takes refuge with his brother-in-law, Count Baldwin V of Flanders, modern Belgium. The Northumbrian nobles choose Morcar as earls at York. What's going on December 28th? Westminster Abbey is consecrated by King Edward the Confessor. All right? We know Edward the Confessor descended down from King Edgar the Peaceful, which was the ruler which was ruling at the time Westminster Abbey was founded, which was the year 959. All right? And we know that it was built for monastic monks under the English Benedictine Reform that was global, all right? Universal, all right? We must understand what's going on, all right? Because we know in 959, Northumbria came up under the rule of King Edgar the Peaceful. All of a sudden now, in 1065, they rebel. They rebel. Edward the Confessor was warned with Vikings the Danish, all right, Harold Godwinson. They rebelled. We can tell all this by the calendar. We know the Seljuk Empire over there in what we call uh, uh, Asia was were invading at the time what we call the Crusades. All right, China doing their own thing. You got the religion. All right, don't tell you pretty much about that. But the main focus is the Northumbria rebels against the Danish king. Why? Because Edward the Confessor dies. All right. The Danish and the kings of Wessex are an alliance. Baldwin of Flanders, descended down from the house of Flanders, would automatically go back to Charles the Bald, which is where the house Kingdom of Jerusalem was created from Godfrey of Bouillon, the son of Eustace II, who was kicked out of England as a result of him arguing with the Vikings. All right? Let's read about that real quick, since we're here, right? Since we're here, let's read about it. Northumbria revolts of 1065 was a rebellion in the last month of the reign of Edward the Confessor against Earls of Northumbria to see Godwinson. That's why my wife, she's related to Godwinson, right? She's Jordan and Godwinson, all right? And Godwinson, or the King Godwinson, was in alliance with Edward the Confessor, with the last ruling king of the kings of Wessex, all right? The Northumbria Revolt of 1065 was rebellion in the last month of reign of Edward the Confessor against the Earl of Northumbria, Torsine Godwinson, brother of Harold Godwinson, Earl of Wessex. Torsine, who had been Earl since 1055, is said to have provoked his nobles to rise against him by his harsh administration of justice, raising tax levels, frequent absence from his earldom, and murder of several political opponents. In October 1065, the rebels entered Northumbria capital York, killed Torsine's men, looted his treasury, renounced their allegiance to Torsine, and proclaimed Morcar, brother Edwin, Earl of Mercia, as their new earl. They then marched south to Northampton, called the Must Habitation in Yorkshire and North Midland, as they went and joining forces with the army of Mercia. The king sent his chief earl, Harold Godwinson, to negotiate with them, and when they refused to compromise on the deposition of Torsine, he tried and failed to raise his own army against them. On Harold's advice, he finally gave to their demand and recognized Morcar. Torsine was sent into exile in Flanders, from where, disgusted at what he saw at his brother betrayal, he shortly after raided the English coast, finally dying in an army against him at the Battle of Stamford Bridge. The Northumbria Revolt was seen at the time and still often seen as the first stage in the establishing of the English kingdom that led up to the Norman conquest. We should say the Berber kingdom that led up to the Norman conquest, who was those ruling under the English Regnal year, 1066. All right, 1066. All right, those want to get a better understanding on what took place in the Northumbria Revolt, you can view it in your own time. Well, in England, Northumbria rebels in 1065. All right, Edward the Confessor consecrated Westminster Abbey, which was built for the monasteries that was selected by St. Dustin, Æthelwold, and all those that were chosen by King Edgar the Peaceful. Okay? Very important for you to understand what's going on. Why? Because let's go to 1066. Because it said the Northumbria rebellion or revolt led to the foundation for the implementation of what we call the Norman conquest. All right. 1066. All of a sudden now you got an English read now year. William the Bastard is ruling. Okay? But the Berber calendar is in existence as well, and the year is 2016. Okay? As well as all the other nations got their calendar. All right? So let's see what's going on around the world in 1066. All right? From the English perspective and the Berber perspective. Very important to understand that. All right? Because we know that all the English kings from 1066 on were English kings. All right? We know that the word Berber originated in London, and London originated in what we call Berkshire, Berkshire. And we know London also originated in Firth, which is in Scotland. All right? And we know Alfred the Great grew up in Berkshire. Okay? And at the time of Alfred the Great, till the time of Edward the Confessor, they were Berber kings because there was no English reading our year from Alfred the Great till Edward the Confessor. All right? We must understand that. So let's look at what's going on. All of a sudden now in 1066, you got a Halley's Comet reaches perihelion and appears in the subsequent recorded in the Baetic Tapestry. You hear that? This celestial event is recorded. All right. Any of you know what that is? Let's see. The Baetic Tapestry is an embroidered cloth nearly 7 meters of 230 feet long and 50 centimeters, which is 20-inch tall, that depicts the events leading up to the Norman conquest of England in 1066, led by William, Duke of Normandy, challenging Harold II, King of England, and culminated in the Battle of Hastings. It is thought to date to the 11th century within a few years of the battle, now widely accepted to have been made in England, perhaps as a gift for William. It tells the story from the point of view of the conquered Normans for centuries have been preserved in Normandy. Okay? We must understand that. What else? We ain't concerned about Asia. We ain't in Asia. What's going on in Europe? September 12th, William, Duke of Normandy, the same one we just talking about, assembled the fleet around 700 warships at St. Valery sur Somme in readiness for the invasion of England. All right? December 30, Grenada massacre, a Muslim mob storms the royal palace of Grenada, crucifies the Jewish advisor Yusuf Ibn Nagrilla, and massacred most of the Jewish population. All right? So these are different Jews. All right? We're talking about. And all this other stuff don't. Oh, we see here. Folk the Fourth, Count of Anjou, known as the Coroller, is at war with his brother Godfrey III, contesting the lands of Anjou and Touraine, left to them by their uncle Godfrey II, Count of Anjou, son of Godfrey I, Count of Anjou, son of Ingalier. All right, where Folk V and Godfrey V are sitting down from. All right. What's going on in England and Scotland, because this is going on in Europe, dealing with the Council of Anjou. Everybody hold that thought, take a 2-minute break. All right, here we go. So we know what's going on in Europe. The Frankish king, the French kings under the House of English, under the Council of Anjou, are fighting over territory and land that was passed down by way of entail. All right, as we see here. Folk the fourth, Count of Anjou, is fighting with his descendant, his brother Godfrey III. All right, left over territory left by his uncle Godfrey II. All right, that name Godfrey is the same name as my name Jefferson. All right, what's going on over in England and Scotland? January, Harold Godwinson married Elgith, daughter of Æthelwold, Earl of Mercia, and widow of King Guthrum ap Lewin. January the 5th, Edward the Confessor died after the 24th year reign in London. The Wittemonks or Witte proclaimed Harold Godwinson King of England. All right. January 6th, Harold Godwinson, Harold II is the crown King of England, probably in the new Westminster Abbey, where Edward the Confessor funeral took place not long before the coronation. All right. September 27th, William Duke of Normandy and his army set sail from the mouth of River Somme, beginning the Norman conquest of England. The following day, he lands on the English coast of Pevensey, split his forces, and served within the main army of Hastings. All right. October 6th, Harold II marched south from Stamford Bridge near York to counter the threat of the invasion by William. Reaching London within 5 days, he leaves a short time later. After a 2 days march, he and his army reached Caldeck Hill. Okay, and so on and so forth. All right. We know that in order to correct this problem, there had to be alliance with William the Conqueror descendants, Henry I, all right, by way of the marriage with this Folk the Fifth descendants. It's either would have been between his daughter Matilda, what's his name? Matilda of Anjou, supposed to have married William Adelin, but he died in the White Ship. So as a restitution, Empress Matilda, the daughter of Margaret of Scotland, Margaret of what's his name? Matilda, Margaret of Scotland. No, not Margaret of Scotland. Matilda of Scotland. Matilda of Scotland was the daughter of Margaret of Scotland, and Margaret of Scotland married Malcolm III. She was also called Margaret of Wessex, the daughter of Æthelwold the Unready, Edward the Elder. All right, or Edward the Exile. Pardon yourself, Edward the Exile. All right. So we know in 1066, a couple of events is going on. All right. A comet appears over as a result of what's going on with the Norman invasion. And Norman invasion results from Northumbria revolt against the King of England when it came to its height, when Northumbria submits to King Edgar the Peaceful as a result of the invasions that were done prior to King Edgar the Peaceful coming upon the scene, and Anglo-Saxon tribes being subject to the invading Roman Celtic tribes and forced them to their form of religion, which we call Christianity. Okay? Very important for you to understand that. We're in 1066 now. Why are we in 1066? Let's bring this to a head. Why is it important? We already know that the English Benedictine Reform was the reformation of the monastic abbeys that represent the English church contrast to the Roman Catholic Church in the late 10th century, and was a religious and intellectual movement in the later Anglo-Saxon period. In mid-10th century, almost all monasteries were staffed by secular clergy, i.e. Roman Catholic clergy, who were often married. The reformers sought to replace them with celibate contemplative monks following the rules of St. Benedict. The movement was inspired by a continental monastic reform, which is known as what we call the Clunic Reform and Clunic Abbey, established by William I, Duke of Aquitaine, and his two abbots was Bernio and Odo of Cluny, right? And Odo studied under Fulk II, the son of Fulk I, which was the son of Engelare, all right? Right? Very important for you to understand that, all right? And the purpose of it was, it said in the 7th and 8th century, England, most monasteries were Benedictine, but in the 9th century, learning and monasticism declined severely. Alfred the Great deplored and declined and started the reverse of it. All right. In 871 to 899, he started the reverse of the decline of the monastic reform so that it can start to grow. This was further nurtured by the courts of Asserton, the first king of the whole of England, who was a cosmopolitan, because this was a cosmopolitan movement. The future reformer, such as Dunstan and Æthelwold, learned from this continental exponent of the Benedictine monasticism. The English movement became dominant under King Edgar in 959 and 975, who supported the expulsion of the secular clergy from monasteries and cathedral chapters and their replacement by monks. The reformers had close relations with the crown. All right, furthering the interest and depending on its support. All right, so King Edgar, which is not Jesus Christ, worked for the crown. You know, the crown represents the throne represents the position that Jesus was to fulfill, which represented his transition from the crucifixion to being entered into the tomb, and as well as the shroud of turning, which was the only instrument that he used to qualify his resurrection or his transition or his personification of that individual supposed to be representing God's son, all right, the Messiah, all right. So it says reformer had close relations with the crown, furthering its interest and depending on its support, all right. What is the crown? We should know. We have to go again. The crown. The crown broadly represents the state in all aspects within the jurisprudence of the Commonwealth realms and their subdivisions, such as crown dependencies, overseas territories, provinces, or states. This is dealing with territory. The term can be used to refer to the office of the monarch or the monarchy as institution, to the rule of law, or to the functions of the executive. The crown and council, legislative crown, i.e. parliament, and the judicial, the crown and the bench, i.e. the king's bench, governments and civil services. Y'all better listen. The concept of the crown is as a corporation so developed first in the Kingdom of England as the separation of the physical crown and property of the kingdom from the person and personal property of the monarch. It spread through English and later British colonization and is now rooted in a legal lexicon in all 50 Commonwealth realms. There are various dependencies in states and free association with them. It is not to be confused with the physical crown, such as those of the British regalia. That's a door. The term is also found in various expressions such as crown land, which sometimes countries refer to public land or state land, as well as some offices such as ministers of the crown, crown attorney, or crown prosecutor. So what is crown land? In closing, crown land, sometimes spelled crown land, also known as royal domain, is a territorial area belonging to the monarch who personifies the crown. All right? It is equivalent of an intel estate and passes with the monarchy being inseparable from it. Today, it is in Commonwealth realm. Crown land is considered public land and is apart from the monarchy's private estate. Okay, let's go back to crown. What's the purpose or the intent of the crown? Or the concept of the crown? The concept of the crown took form under the feudal system, though not used to this part. So I didn't want to go here. Let me go back. The crown. I missed the part. The crown. The concept of the crown as a corporation so developed first in the Kingdom of England as the separation of the physical crown and the property of the king from the person and personal property of the monarch. Okay, so it says the crown is a corporation soul. What is a corporation soul? All right, because y'all keep looking for Jesus in that tomb and his resurrection, and he was never in that tomb and never resurrected from that tomb. All right, because your perception of the resurrection is wrong. All right, our resurrection means the incarnation or the personification of that station, which represents the Messiah, the King, the ruler, the hierarchy, etc. A corporation soul is a legal entity consisting of a single soul incorporated office occupied by a single soul natural person. This structure allows corporations, often religious corporations or commonwealth governments, to pass without interruption from one office holder to the next, giving positions legal continuity with subsequent office holders having identical powers and possessions to their predecessors. A corporation soul is in two types of corporation, and the other being corporation aggregate. Okay? Did you see that? Did you hear that? You understand that? If you didn't, you're in a world of trouble. Why? Let's go back to crown. The conception or the concept or the intent of the crown. The concept of the crown took form under feudal systems, though not used this way in all countries that had this system. In England, all rights and privileges were ultimately bestowed by the ruler. Land, for instance, was granted by the crown to lords in exchange for the feudal services, and they in turn granted the land to lesser lords. One exception to this was common soccage. Owners of land held as soccage held is subject only to the crown. When such land became ownerless, they are said to escheat, i.e., return directly to the ownership of the crown. So when y'all went on your crusades, all the land, as a result of your crusades, it is ceded to the crown as a result of you not being here no more. Because if you're not here, that means that it has interstate. And if it's interstate, that means that it's subject to what we call eminent domain power, which is called compulsory power or acquisition power, which gives the state the ability to take the land under its eminent domain power and now use it what they call what's the term uh, easements. All right, and this is where the word or the term escrow comes in. All right, because in order for them to use it, they got to make money off it. Invest. These are your shareholders, your stockholders who create the stakeholders, and your stakeholders is the agencies of the state who make money off it. And the only true money is real estate, and real estate are run by real estate brokers who are called escrow brokers, and escrow brokers must maintain an escrow account, and an escrow account is called a trust account, and a trust account is a account separate from the mortgage. An escrow account or a trust account is an account for those taxes. All right, those encumbrances. All right. So the concept of crown formed under feudal system, though not this way in all countries that had this system. In England, all rights and privileges were ultimately bestowed to the ruler. Land, for instance, was granted by the crown to the lords in exchange for the feudal services, and they in turn granted land to lesser lords. One exception in this was common soakers. Owner of land held a subject only to the crown. When such land became ownerless, they are said to exceed, as I said earlier, i.e., return directly ownership to the crown, i.e., crown land. Crown land is entail land. When land is entail, that means there are heirs. When there are no heirs, that means it's interstate. Okay? So if it's interstate and it goes back to the crown is corporation soul, and the corporation soul is one natural person. So this is the position that Jesus represented. All right? If you understand it in the concrete form, this is how you should understand it and overstand it in the purpose and intent of which we're about to discuss right now. Because the Holy Sepulchre was where the burial of, or the story was hidden in regards to that office, which was represented by that escrow agent, all right, which holds the property, all right. He don't own it. He only holds the property to an owner that he does not know, because the owner is yet to be found in, because the owner is the crown, and the crown is personified by the king, i.e. the monarchy, all right. You must understand that, all right. Let's close out on this. Back to Westminster Abbey. We know about the English Benedictine Reform, and we know that why the monastery was built for the English Benedictine Reform, okay? The origins of the abbey are generally thought to date about 959, okay? We already went to the calendar of 959. We know St. Dunstan and King Edgar installed the community of Benedictine monks, and these monks are a reference to the Continental monastery movement that was global, all right? And it came to a height under King Edgar the Peaceful, all right? And he was not an English king, he was a Berber king, all right? So what was the main doctrine that was the law governing the Westminster Abbey? Let's check it out in closing. Regularis Concordia of Winchester. The Regularis Concordia was the most important document of the English Benedictine Reform, sanctioned by the Council of Winchester in about 973. All right. The document was compiled by Æthelwold, who was aided by monks from the Fleury Abbey and the Ghent Abbey. A synodal council was summoned to construct a common rule of life to be observed by all the monasteries as a result of the English Benedictine Reform, which was a Continental Reform movement. The document served as a rule for how monastic life should be performed, including monastic rituals like the procedure for the elections of bishops that differs from the Continental practice and which led to the predominantly monastic episcopacy. Pardon yourself if I pronounced that wrong. Content. One is the largest topic found within the manuscript of the Regularis Concordia was forward to the harmonies of the rule, which is meant to apply to the monks and nuns of the entire nation that was ruled under King Edgar. Did you hear that? The time is 1111. All right? Time is 1111. The section of the document proclaimed that every religious house in the kingdom was to follow the rules prescribed to the rest of the manuscript. This includes how the monastic office was to be performed. Office includes vigils, laws, and prayers, and its practice that was established in the 5th century. The prescriptions for the monastic office are specific. For example, it includes the specific liturgical songs to be performed during the mandated labor hours that were required of monks. The portion of the manuscript dedicated to the rites of the Holy Week and Easter are the most detailed. This is where the introduction of the Quem Quaeritis is introduced and is now credited to be introduced to the theatrical ritual. The Regalias also creates the specific pattern in order that bells should be rung and for masses and holidays. All right, based off the Concordia. What it's called, the Regularis Concordia. Historical context. Under King Edgar the Peaceful, 959-975, England experienced a period of peace and revival of monasticism. Æthelwold of Winchester improved and expanded the rule of St. Benedict and wrote the Regularis Concordia as a result of Edgar's rule. You hear that? The monastic reform in the 10th century under Æthelwold, Dunstan, and it was also declared in the theatrical ritual. All right. The earliest example of the theatrical ritual in regard to Regularis Concordia, with the rules of the divine service referred to as the Quem Quaeritis, this rule includes the oldest documented theatrical recital of alternating songs to be performed the night before Easter. The Regalias stated that the importance of the visual ritual was to aid those who could not read or understand Latin in the understanding of the ritual. The Latin quote below describes an alternating song between the 3 women approaching the grave and the angel watching on it should be recited. The friars who sing the words of the angel is to take his seat. Clad in an owl and with a palm twig in his hand, in a place representing the tomb, 3 other friars wearing hood caps and with censers in their hands are to approach the tomb at the slow pace as if the quest of something. Quem Quaeritis and sepulchral old Christocole, I pronounce wrong, forgive me, Gisum Nazarism Crucixum old Calcoliae non Serix Secult. I can't get that. I need Archbishop for that one. Let's see what the English translation say. All right. Let's see what the English translation say. In closing. First of all, I said twig and palm. Quick. Library of Seasons. Ancient practice of conveyance of land. A library of season. Yes, right here. Lottery season is an archaic legal conveyance ceremony formerly practiced in feudal England and in other countries following the English common law. We know English common law was founded by Henry II, son of Godfrey, the fifth kind of man Jew, used to convey holding and property. The term lottery is synonymous with the word delivery, used in some jurisdictions in contract law or related to the law of deeds. The oldest form of common law provided that a valid conveyance of a feudal tenure in land required a physical transfer by the transferor to the transferee, in the presence of a witness of a piece of ground itself. It is the literal sense of a hand-to-hand passing of the amount of soil, a twig, a key to a building of that land or other token. Did y'all hear that? Types of varieties. Lottery of season could refer to either lottery indeed, whereby the parties met together on the land and that the transferor symbolically delivered possession of the land by handing over a twig or a clump of earth to the recipient. Lottery in law, whereby the parties went within sight of the land and the transferor declared to the recipient that the possession was being given, followed by the recipient entering onto the land. The symbol of lottery for the house was the door ring or hatch for mills, the clap and hopper for a church, and a psalms book and a key, and so on. Bernard Hodges in the history of Malmesbury describes the process in at least Wiltshire, this continued in the late 7th century as follows. The lucky new commoner goes and gives an acre and cut a turf from the selected site and drop 2 shillings in the hole made, i.e. the tomb. The high steward of the county then twitches him with a twig and stick. You hear that? In their palm. Twig palm. All right? Twitches him with a twig and sticks the twig in the turf. Then hands it him, saying, this turf and twig I give to thee as free as Atherton gave to me. And I hope a loving brother thou will be. The high steward then takes the money out of the hole, and the new landowner replaces the turf. All right. So let's go back to we at Regularis Concordia. Now we know a palm twig is a branch of a twig of a particular tree. All right, used as we see symbolic here. This is a Latin quote below described an alternating song between the three women approaching the grave and the angel watching on it shall be recited. The friar who sings the words of the angel is to take his seat, clad in a olive with a palm twig in his hand, and a place representing the tomb. Three other friars wearing hood caps and with censers in their hands are to approach the tomb at the slow pace, as if in a quest of something, i.e., a question. All right, so let's go to it and read for ourselves. Quem Quaeritis, question. The Latin question, Quem Quaeritis, Latin, whom do you seek, refers to the 4 lines of the medieval Easter liturgy, the later forms the kernel of the large body of medieval liturgical drama, which is also known as Visitatio Sepulchri, visit to the tomb. It was introduced into liturgy in the 10th century as a new generation of liturgical ceremony. This is the Latin translation, and this is the English translation. Question by the angel, whom do you seek in the sepulchre, O followers of Christ? Answer, by the Marys, Jesus of Nazareth, the crucified or heavenly one. The angel, he is not here. He is risen, just as he is foretold. Go announce that he is risen from the sepulchre. All right? Once again, he has risen from the sepulchre. The lines were then followed by the song chorus of Hallelujah. The Quem Quaeritis was an exchange of one question, one answer, and one command between the angels at Christ's tomb and the three Marys, the Virgin Mary, Mary Magdalene, and Mary, the sister of Lazarus. The specific question, Quem Quaeritis, whom do y'all seek, is not in fact in Luke 24, where it was implied but omitted. Why seek the living amongst the dead? He is not here, but is risen. Let's go to Luke 24. Text. The original was written in Koine Greek. Some early manuscripts containing the text of this chapter are, you see the particular manuscripts, all right? Resurrection morning, chapter 24, verse 1 through 12. The narrative in chapter 24 continued the event, concluding chapter 23 without a break. It was the day of preparation, and the Sabbath was beginning. The woman who had come with him from Galilee followed, and they saw the tomb and how his body was laid. They then returned and prepared spices and ointments. But on the first day of the week, at early dawn, they came to the tomb, taking the spices that they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb. Now, upon the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they came unto the sepulchre, bringing the spices which they had prepared, and certain others with them. The woman who had come with him from Galilee included Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary, the mother of James, and the other woman with them. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary, the mother of James, and the other woman with them who told these things to the apostles. The name of, Verse 12, but Peter arose and ran to the tomb and stooped down. He saw the linen cloth lying by themselves, and he departed, marveling to himself at what had happened. This verse in verse 24, the Lord is risen indeed. See that word? Indeed. All right? So we can break that word. Indeed. We know a deed is an instrument known as an escrow. We know what escrow is a strip or a shred. This is the same word as shroud. And the shroud is symbolic of the resurrection or the proof of the resurrection, which we know is the corporation. And we know the corporation is represented by a charter. And charters in those days was based upon a deed given by the king. And the king gave it by way of a deed made up in what we call parchment. Okay? So as we can see, the etymology, the allegorical, all mixed up in one. So for all those, all right, my screen acting up. That's fine, I'm closing now. Okay, all right. I don't know what's going on. And within that, in closing, I greet you in the spirit, which is what you see right here on the calendar. You don't see anybody. You know what I'm saying? So this lesson is in regards to the spirit or the resurrection of King Edgar the Peaceful and to me, by way of personifying King Edgar wishes through the reinstitution of the monastic reform by creating what we call the Third Temple English Church. And with that, we here at the Third Temple English Church say peace, if you can see me. All right.